Welcome to the Pitstop Power Hour presented by Race 92, where we bring you up to speed on everything that is anything in the motorsports universe. How you doing today, guys? Well, actually, let's introduce each other. I'm your host, Jacob Smith, and then to my right is your co-host, Calvin Veen. And then to my left, hello, Calvin. And then to my left is the one, the only, your other co-host, Aaron McAtee.
Hello.
How are you guys doing today?
Oh, I'm good.
I'm doing fantastic.
You can tell Aaron is excited to be here.
I'm a little out of breath because number one, I had to run to my house to get my headphones, and number two, we're doing like audio voice exercises before this now, apparently.
You know, us good podcasters came prepared with our equipment ready to go, and
You
we're
live
warmed
here.
up.
You
It is
live
much
here.
easier when I do that, but it helps.
This is our third time. I feel like third time's a charm, guys. I feel like we're kind of getting into it a little bit.
Well, it can't get any worse, so.
You can't get worse.
Don't say that.
So we're moving forward, just baby steps, guys.
All right. Should we just jump into the news for this week? There is a lot to cover.
Yeah, surprisingly. I'm excited to announce that it's no longer officially the off-season for the entire motorsports world. This first round, the opening round of the Supercross Series, debuted last weekend, January 16th, at Houston. And so we are officially in racing season, at least for some sports. So I'm really pumped, guys. There's finally some racing to talk about that's happening right now.
Cool. Well, let's talk about it. What are the results?
So, yeah, let's start with the 250 class. Christian Craig, he dominated this past weekend. He won his heat race and the main event. And he meant, and this is his first win in 5 years. He actually retired from the sport and then came back and then kind of built back up. It's really an awesome comeback story to see him pull off the win. And it was really an emotional event for him. Like you could see, like he was wearing the emotion on his face.
Did you cry?
Me? No, but I almost did after he did. I'm being honest. But for him, it was like a huge, monumentous task to get back to that elite level and be winning again after retiring and kind of working a boring day job. I think he was working in construction, if I believe, for a few years before he decided to get back into it.
Nice.
How old is he?
29. So he's just a year older than us. But yeah, that was pretty cool. You could almost make a movie out of that story. But another story that you could make a movie out of is Justin Barcia in the 450 class. He also kind of dominated in the heat race. And then he had a good battle with Ken Roczen in the main event. And he pulled off the main event win. So congratulations also to Justin Barcia, taking the top spot in the 450 class for the opening round. And a fun fact is he won the opening round now for the third consecutive year. The only other rider to achieve that was Jeremy McGrath 25 years ago. So that says a lot about his ability, at least in the opening round. The other thing cool, too, with Justin Barcia's story, and Christian Craig, is both of them were on new teams, on new bikes. So for them to kind of come out with all new equipment and be able to show up the competition that was on existing equipment that they're already used to, that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, certainly cool. And I mean, Justin Barcia is probably one of the best right now. Would you agree?
He's kind of, at this point, he's one of the veterans. I don't know, he's like right under the best. So a lot of people in the industry consider Eli Tomac the fastest rider right now. Okay. And he didn't have a very good finish in this opening round. So I'm curious to see if Eli Tomac will kind of bounce back from his finish in the main event. He wasn't even inside the top 10.
Okay.
Which was very unlike Eli Tomac.
Well, it should be a good start to the season and something to watch throughout the rest of the year.
Absolutely. So, yeah, stay tuned. Actually, tonight, the Houston Round 2 race is going on a Tuesday night.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll be able to talk about that maybe next week. We'll see what happens tonight. And then there's Houston Round 3 is on Saturday.
All right.
So look it up on the internet, see when it's on TV.
All right. Maybe we jump into some IndyCar news because there has been a lot of IndyCar news for what should be a relatively slow week in the offseason here. I think the big story out of last week, Marco Andretti no longer running full-time in the IndyCar series. It's confirmed he's going to be Indy only and might possibly explore some IMSA drives with his cousin Jared Andretti and focus on just his life.
One thing I thought was kind of cool with the whole Jared Andretti, Marco possibly driving with Jared Andretti. Apparently, Jared Andretti had plans with his father, the late John Andretti, to race together. And obviously, unfortunately, that couldn't happen. So I think Marco is trying to help fill that void to kind of keep it still in the family.
That's cool. Certainly, Marco is, I think he's always been poised to be a great endurance driver. He has the speed and consistency.
Oh, for sure.
But it's always been that last, tenth of a second that always seems to escape him in IndyCar. But that will serve him very well if he does decide to go endurance racing. I'd say over the course of his long Indy career, 15 years now, he got 2 IndyCar wins. His rookie year in 2006 at Sonoma makes him the youngest IndyCar winner in history at the time. Then his second win in 2011 at Iowa, and just hasn't had much luck since.
Indy 500 pole, that was about it since then.
Indy 500 pole was probably his biggest in the least years. But for me, he'll always go down as most notable for his second place finish to Sam Hornish in 2006.
Were you guys there for that race?
I was
Absolutely.
right there in Tower Terrace, so it happened right in front of me.
I couldn't believe it. I was in turn 3, and the amount that Sam Hornish was gaining on him on the last lap, I couldn't believe it.
Right.
I thought Andretti had the race.
It's amazing just to think that if Michael had played a little bit dirty or Marco had played dirty, there'd be an Andretti that would have won the race. But they
Because
stayed
Michael
true.
was up there too.
And
Michael finished
it
third.
also it would have been a rookie, and also would have been the youngest 500 champion in history. And Sam Hornish and Penske just kind of ruined all that.
Yeah.
Ruined all that for him. So, but that was a great race for sure.
So Marco's had a great career. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. He's done certainly good, but it's curious to see what this next chapter is going to bring for him.
Yeah, he's definitely a veteran. I think at this point, it sounds like he's kind of looking at doing things that he wants to do versus things that he has to do for his career.
Isn't that the place you want to be? Do what you're having fun doing. If you're not having fun, don't do it.
Yeah, so he might actually, if he's more relaxed, he might improve.
This is going to be, I
the
think, a new
racing he's
Marco we
doing.
see in May. I think it's going to be interesting to see.
I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do this
And he's
May.
still going to be in contention for the win.
I thought so this year too, and he just went straight to the back.
The Andretti cars are always up there. If he's got the right car underneath him, he'll be there.
Wasn't there this year.
So continuing on with some IndyCar news, Simona Di Silvestro was announced in a Beth Paretta Racing car partnered with Team Penske. So another Indy 500 entry. It's a women-led program, so I think that's pretty cool. So, so what do you guys think?
I think it's cool. The more cars that we have entering for the 500, the more fun it's going to be from a fan perspective, the more interesting the month of May is going to be. So, it's good news. I don't think there's any negatives to it at all.
It definitely was shocking to hear that Penske was going to do a 5th car.
Yeah.
I think David Land was one of the first people to actually kind of come out with that news. And I was kind of skeptical about it on who the 5th driver would actually be. I heard some rumors like Kyle Busch. Someone was very confident it was Kyle Busch. And then when I heard yesterday that these were connected, the whole race for equality and change and this entry was connected, and they said they were going to bring in a woman either as ownership or driver or crew or both. I honestly thought it was going to be Catherine Lake. The Simona thing kind of threw me for a wrench for sure.
It's certainly great to see Simona back at the 500. Beth Paretta, who is the team owner on this entry, she was part of the previous woman-owned initiative, Grace Autosport, which was supposed to be an entry in the 2016 Indy 500 with Catherine Lake. So that's probably where that came from. And I will say Beth is no stranger to racing. Mm-hmm. She's worked with Fiat Chrysler in the SRT program on the Dodge performance side. So she's been a part of championships in NASCAR, IMSA, Trans Am, and I think Indy 500 would go a long way to cementing a legacy and a good resume.
Absolutely. And I think Simona is a hell of a driver. So
absolutely.
I'm curious to see what she can do with the Penske-backed, partnered team.
Yeah, Simona's had a pretty interesting career, I'd say. Aaron, you want to kind of highlight some of her achievements?
Yeah, so she, like most drivers, she kind of started out from the bottom up the ladder. She started out with Formula Renault, did the Formula BMW USA program, and actually a lot of drivers. I remember when F1 was here in 2000. Well, I was out there like 2005, 2006. I remember like Graham Rahal was racing in it.
Mm-hmm.
Frankie Muniz was doing it at that time. There was a bunch of drivers. Actually, like what's his face? Vettel came
Sebastian
through.
Vettel, yep.
Sebastian Vettel, but he came through like
Ever heard of him?
Yeah, I don't know who
That
guy
kid's going
is.
on to good things. I just got a feeling.
I knew. I called it that weekend too. But anyway, so she went from Formula BMW to the Atlantic Championship, where she did 3 seasons. Most notably, she was with Newman Walks Racing. That's a tongue twister. In 2008, 2009, she was with Team Stargate Worlds team, and actually she was teammates with Frankie Muniz that year.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting. And then right from there, she went straight into IndyCar from 2010 to 2012 with HVM Racing. I mean, she finished a lot of races. She probably wasn't in the best car to really be in contention of winning races.
I think the defining moment for me and Simona's Indy 500 career was that fiery accident she had in practice where she burnt her hands.
That wasn't. Where was that? It was an oval. I want to say
she had a couple that year. She had a big crash at Indy in practice over in turn 3.
Oh yeah.
And then came back to qualify for the race and ran strong, even though she had her hands there bandaged like Mickey Mouse, is what she said.
Right. I'm thinking of the one where the safety people had trouble getting the fire extinguishers going.
Like Texas, the next race or something?
Yep.
It was so close.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
So she had a literal trial by fire in IndyCar, but
Pun intended.
No pun intended. And then 2014, she actually went over to F1. She was a Sauber F1 test driver. 2015, she came back to IndyCar for 3 races with Andretti, and I believe either Long Beach or Barber, she finished like 4th. So she had a top 5 finish in there. And she finished Indy, I think she was like top 15. So, I mean, it definitely shows that she has potential. So I definitely think in a Penske car, I think she'll definitely be top 10. Never know. She could win the thing.
I mean, she's going to have the best chance she's had to win the race. HVM
absolutely.
was not
Andretti, though.
Andretti was a good car, but, I mean, her career with HVM when she was a full-time IndyCar driver was maybe not the best car to be up front. You didn't expect them to win, but when a Penske prepares your car, you expect that to be up there. So.
Yeah. So after she did that, she did V8, a few V8 supercar. I cannot talk. A few V8 supercar seasons, and then she did 24 Hours of Le Mans, 24 Hours of Daytona race for IMSA.
Very cool. So it'll be exciting to have her back. I'm excited to see what she can do.
I have one other news story to break real quick.
Absolutely.
So we all remember the Taco Bell on 16th Street that Scott Dixon and Daryl Franchitti got robbed at.
How can you forget?
It is now a California burger. You heard it here first. It's like a knockout. It's like a knockoff of In-N-Out Burger. It's actually pretty good. I've been there.
So what do you say we stop the podcast and get some food?
I'm hungry. Sounds good to me.
I just ate, guys. I'm good.
Speaking of food, last weekend was the Chili Bowl. Was that too bad of a setup? Was that cringy?
No, that's about perfect.
That was good.
Calvin.
Okay.
Would totally forgot about it if you didn't say that.
So we had over the weekend, we had a live stream on the Pitstop Power Hour YouTube channel. Aaron hosted some of his friends, some colleagues. David Land was among them. Scott, Kellen. Good group. It was a great live stream previewing the show, talking everything and anything midget racing. Aaron, you want to run down some Chili Bowl results for us?
Yeah, and then to kind of touch on the live stream again, so we have my buddy Scott Bowie, who has been involved with dirt racing longer than all of us have been alive. He had the whole idea was to have some other people on there that knew a little bit more about dirt racing than I did or any of us did. So obviously, he's a great personality. He was born to do stuff like this. He brought on Kellen Cornover, who was a midget driver. He still may race a little bit, but he actually raced in the Chili Bowl. I think he made it pretty high up in the alphabet soup. I don't think he actually made the main, but he's been through the experience, so he knew what it was like. So it was really interesting to kind of get his idea on it. And also we had Kim Stewart, who is a track announcer. She works for Tony Stewart's All-Star Race of Champions Wing Sprint Car Series. And also she's a resident announcer, I believe, at Raceway Park. And she had a great voice.
I'd say I was not a part of the live stream, but I sat there and listened
Right.
to the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was some great conversation. I learned a lot. I know we're after the Chili Bowl, but if anybody listening has an interest in midget racing,
Yeah.
dirt racing, it was a great conversation. I'd highly recommend going back and listening to it. And I will tell you, after we stopped the live stream, those guys sat there and kept talking racing for probably, 2-3 hours after the live
at least
stream.
2
So
hours.
they had a lot of information, a lot of good stories. Highly recommend it.
It's
So-
pretty funny too. So if you want a little bit of a laugh, you'll get it out of it. I promise you that. But yeah, we'll go straight into the Chili Bowl results. So in the live stream, we talked about what our predictions were, who was going to win, and I think just about everyone said Kyle Larson. And it's safe to say that we were all correct. I mean, it's absolutely hard to not pick Kyle Larson when you see what he did during the summer. He won like 50% of his races, which is just insane. So he definitely did not disappoint. Christopher Bell was really the only one really giving him a run for his money. He got up there close with like 10 laps to go, ended up doing some flips, kind of got up a little high into the cushion. And then Justin Grant got pretty close up to him and pretty much did the same thing. And Kyle Larson won.
Kyle Larson's a heck of a driver, so it's not really a surprise, is
No.
it?
No, but yeah.
Okay. Anything else in news we want to cover?
Only other thing I will mention, Santino Ferrucci is doing a part-time Xfinity
Yeah.
run next year, or
So-
this year.
It's coming, sounds like he's kind of done with IndyCar, at least on a full-time
Yeah,
schedule.
it was really surprising. I thought for sure, because I heard rumors that he was going to go to a big team. I want to say it was like Penske.
I heard he was, there was a rumor I heard that he was going to be considered for the Andretti seat, the 28 where Hunter Ray
Oh,
is.
right. Yeah, it was that.
But Santino had to bring budget, and I think ultimately his sponsors wanted him to run NASCAR, and
Right.
as a young race car driver, a paid seat in NASCAR versus a paid ride in IndyCar, yeah, might as well try it. The kid's great on ovals. You might as well give it a shot.
And I think something a lot of people don't really think about, kind of like the Marco Andretti news, like, oh, Marco Andretti decided he doesn't want to do it, or Santino Ferrucci decides he wants to go to NASCAR. Most of the time, I'm sure sponsors and other factors are kind of taking into effect there that you may not realize or they don't really publicize.
Certainly sponsorship and money talks.
That it does.
Thank you, Mr. Accountant.
Yeah.
Okay, should we jump into our main segment for the night?
Suppose we might as well. I mean,
Should I get my sleeping bag and pillow out?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you should, because the title of this segment is Story Time with Jacob Smith.
That is correct, Calvin. So basically, the story time segment is where we talk about kind of a historical moment in racing, and we just kind of give you a rundown of what happened, maybe potentially some takeaways, and kind of take it from there. Since there's not a whole lot going on in the motorsports industry right now, I figured it was a good time to maybe tell a little story. So
So what story do you have for us this week?
the 2002 Indianapolis 500.
One's a classic. Let's hear it.
You guys want to get into it?
Let's do it.
All righty, here we go. I wish we had a sound effect for the intro.
All righty. Story time with Jacob Smith.
Hey,
That's
that
what
works.
we use for technical talk for Calvin Veen.
That was the theory world. We need more sound effects, so
All right, well, let's just get into it. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
I think I'm ready. Let's do this, guys. The 2002 Indianapolis 500. A month of May that would be known for cold and rainy weather throughout the month. More kart teams attempting to cement their place in the Indy 500 history books since the split. And one of the most controversial finishes of Indy 500 history, at the very least in the recent past. Leading up to the month of May, several kart teams announced that they would also be entering the Indianapolis 500. Returning teams included Team Penske, Chip Ganassi Racing, and Team Green, who eventually will evolve into Andretti Autosport team that we know today. Joining these returning kart teams was Ray Hall Letterman Racing for the first time. Any of these names ring a bell? I think they do for us. Yeah. These teams would go on to become the powerhouse teams that we know in IndyCar racing today. There are also 9 rookies that made the race in 2002. Some of these drivers would go on to have very successful careers in IndyCar racing. Tony Kanaan, Thomas Scheckter, Laurent Radon, Rick Treadway, Max Pappas, Alex Baring, Shigeki Hattori, Dario Franchitti and George Mack would make their debut at the greatest spectacle of racing in 2002. Again, do a few of those names ring a bell?
At least a couple.
So
That Tony Kanaan kid, I think, yeah, he's got potential too.
Yeah, I
I don't know,
definitely.
that Franchitti guy sounds promising potentially.
Franchitti sounds foreign.
So, so that was one of the cool things about the 2002 race was a lot of big names kind of got their start around this time, in this very race.
Yeah.
Another thing worth noting was the revolutionary safer barrier was installed at the track before the 2002 Indianapolis 500. Fun fact, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was the first track to have the safer barrier installed. This new technology proved to be much more effective in keeping drivers safe compared to the basic concrete walls that everyone else was used to. Even though NASCAR may have you believe that they were the first ones to develop the technology, it was actually developed mostly by support from the IRL. Sorry, NASCAR. But I will give you some credit, NASCAR. You did help with some of the funding after the technology proved successful at Indianapolis. So I suppose you deserve a little bit of credit, too. Cold weather and rain plagued the month of May in 2002. Excluding race day, 6 of the 14 events were rained out, or at the very least delayed by rain, including bump day, which was crucial for teams on the outside looking in, hoping to bump their way into the field. This added to the myriad of challenges drivers and teams face when hoping to bump their way into the field. I think I just lost my line right there, but we're going to keep on going. I'd say another big challenging part, too, not just bumping into the field, but also getting the right setup for race day. When you don't have that track time, it's going to be hard to get your car right.
Yeah.
The first big event of the month was pole day, arguably the second biggest event of the month of May behind race day. Though the track record wasn't in danger of being broken this year, teams and drivers were vying for bragging rights of being the fastest in the month of May, not to mention getting a good starting position and that fat check that pole winner receives. Bruno Junqueira was the first to make a qualifying attempt on pole day. He set an average speed of a blistering 231.342 miles per hour, the fastest speed ever reached since the track record was set in 1996. No other driver could beat that speed, making Junqueira the pole sitter for the 2002 Indianapolis 500. Robbie Buell would start second, and Raul Boesel would round out the first row, starting in third place. The second day of qualifying that weekend would be rained out, requiring drivers on the outside looking in after the first day of qualifying to wait until bump day to attempt to qualify for the greatest spectacle in racing. Mother Nature decided to add to the drama on bump day, delaying the start of the event for over an hour due to rain. The clouds were ominous, and teams were scrambling to qualify their cars before potential rainfall had a chance to end the day early. The riskiest move of the day happened when Team Green pulled Michael Andretti's car from the field in an attempt to improve his qualifying speed. His new time was greatly improved compared to his previous time, earning him a starting position of 25th place. With Jimmy Kite and Donnie Beechler still in the qualifying line, hoping to bump their way into the field, the heavens opened up and rain forced the day to end early, just before 5 p.m. Here we go, guys. It's all been leading up to this. Sunday, May 26, 2002, race day. After a month plagued by rain and cold weather, race day was sunny with temperatures in the mid-70s. You couldn't ask for better conditions for a race. Mary Holman George gave the command to start engines at 10:52 a.m. Where was I at the opening ceremonies went down? I was in line with my parents at the entrance waiting to get our bags and coolers checked. Security was extra heavy for the 2002 Indy 500 due to the recent 9/11 tragedy, and for good reason. Lines took hours longer to get into the track due to the increased security measures. So there we were, waiting outside the track as the cars were taking off and beginning their pace laps. Calvin and Aaron, where are you guys for the start of the race?
I don't think I went to the race yet.
2002, I would have been sat with my family up in Tower Terrace.
Did you make it on time before the opening ceremonies?
I guarantee we did. I know our race day tradition is get there early. We were probably parked in the Coke lot still at that time and had, your breakfast to the cold fried chicken and for me, non-alcoholic beverages at the time, but...
I was like 10.
Yep.
So no beer for Jacob in 2002.
We know
2003, maybe.
Maybe just one. I don't know.
No, I was there for the start of the race, but
Yeah, we went there normal time like we did every year, and we never had issues with getting there on time. But that year it was so crazy.
Yeah, the world had changed.
Yeah, you're just getting used to the new normal that we all are used to nowadays. And
Yeah.
anyways, on with the show.
On with the show.
At the start of the race, Bruno Junqueira held on to the lead for the first 32 laps until stalling his car during a pit stop. Rookie Thomas Scheckter then took the lead. Around the 65th lap, pit windows started opening up, and with that came a shuffling of the leaderboard. Thomas Scheckter relinquished his lead to another rookie, Tony Kanaan, on lap 78. Kanaan was still leading on lap 90 when both Jimmy Vasser and Bruno Junqueira started slowing on the track due to mechanical problems, causing an oil leak on the track that went unnoticed. Due to this being unnoticed, leader Kanaan spun in turn 3 from the oil on lap 90, collecting Rick Treadway with him. The early part of the second half of the race was pretty quiet. Due to pit strategy, the lead was traded back and forth between Gilles de Ferran, Scott Sharp, Felipe Giafoni, and Alex Barron. However, after pit cycles ran their course, Scheckter again found himself in the lead. At this point, it looked like it was Thomas Schechter's race to lose. It appeared that a rookie could win the Indianapolis 500 for the third consecutive year. As fans started to come to terms with the idea of Thomas Scheckter winning the race, disaster struck for the rookie on lap 173. Scheckter lost control of his car in turn 4, hitting the wall and bringing out the yellow. Scheckter had led 85 laps up until that point, earning him Rookie of the Year alongside Alex Barron. Most of the frontrunners dove into the pits during this yellow flag, except for one, Elio Castroneves. Because of this, Castroneves assumed the lead with the green flag dropped on lap 181. It was at that point that me and my family, and I'd say a lot of other people in the stand, started muttering something along the lines of, Penske's going to win this goddamn race.
As they do.
Yep. However, Castroneves' pace was not the same as the pace of the second and third place drivers, whom had more fuel in the tank to burn. Felipe Giafoni and Paul Tracy. Giafoni and Tracy were closing in fast on Castroneves, and all three cars were coming up fast on the lapped car of Dario Franchitti. With less than 3 laps to go, Giafoni dove under Castroneves in an attempt to take the lead, only to have a lapped car of Franchitti get in the way to be able to complete the pass. This allowed Paul Tracy to move into second place. Tracy was catching up quick to Castroneves with 2 laps to go, attempting to make a pass when disaster struck.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bam, bam, bam. We need a sound effect for these things. Right as Paul Tracy was making a pass on Elio Castroneves for the lead in turn 3, an accident occurred in turn 2 where Laurent Raidon tangled with the 1996 Indy 500 champion Buddy Lazier, bringing out a caution light right before the race was complete. Castroneves, seeing flashing lights on his dashboard, believed his car was out of fuel and let off, allowing Tracy and Giafoni to go by. After believing to have taken the lead, Paul Tracy started celebrating as the race winner. He would later account that there were no indicators of a caution until after he made the pass on Castroneves. After making the pass, his team would shortly come on his radio stating that there was a problem. This would spark the events that would later occur that would make this among the most controversial finishes of the Indianapolis 500. Tracy and Giafoni would go on to complete their 200th lap. However, the scoring system did not count it due to the caution. Their official lap would be recorded on their 201st lap with Tracy finishing second and Giafoni third. Castroneves was credited with the race win and stopped his car in the main straightaway and climbed the catch fence in classic Elio Castroneves fashion. Being credited with the win, this would make Castroneves the 5th driver in Indianapolis history to win races back-to-back, joining the ranks of Wilbur Shaw, Maury Rose, Bill Vukovich, and Al Unser Sr. Though the IRL ultimately ruled Castroneves as the 2002 Indianapolis 500 winner, is there any evidence that would suggest Paul Tracy was the actual winner? This isn't the first time that there has been controversy with who won the race. Other examples include the 1981 Indy 500 and even the very first Indianapolis 500 in 2011, where Ralph Mulford protested Ray Haroon's win.
The first Indy 500 was in 2011.
Did I just say that?
Yeah.
I think everyone listening knows that was not when the first race was. Let me correct myself. Thanks for catching that, Aaron. the very first Indianapolis 500 that was held in 1911, where
better?
Ralph Mulford protested Ray Haroon's win. This week, we'll look into the details and evidence supporting the results of the 2002 Indianapolis 500 and discuss if it was possible that Paul Tracy had won the race depending on how the rules are interpreted in this week's Hot Take.
All right. Well, thank you for that story.
I only yawned 3 times.
At least you caught the 2011 there because I missed it the first time through.
I didn't even catch myself. I just kept barreling through. I wonder how many more mistakes I made when we listened
I just
to
heard
this playback.
2011 and Ralph Mulford. I was like, yeah, I don't think that name was in that race.
I can't wait to listen to this recording and see how many of those types of things I did.
That was only one.
without realizing it.
He's the only one I noticed. So
Okay. Sounds good. Well, anyways, so back to this week's Hot Take. The Hot Take is where we dive deep into a subject and debate it, kind of like Debate Club. Sometimes it's a hypothetical what-if situation. Other times it's pertinent to real-world events in motorsports. Let's get into this week's Hot Take. Did Paul Tracy or Helio Castroneves technically win the 2002 Indianapolis 500?
I say no.
No to what?
No to Paul Tracy. Elio
Yeah.
is the winner.
I would probably have to agree
I mean,
with
that's what
that.
they have in the record books.
Right.
But do you think that there is any evidence that if they interpreted it differently, that Paul Tracy could have been declared the winner?
Correct. That's what the controversy is, and
Right.
to this day, there is a group of diehard fans that will say Paul Tracy won that race.
Including Paul Tracy.
Of
Yes.
course, because Paul Tracy's never one to hide his words.
Nope.
So
So, Aaron, why don't you tell us some reasons that Paul Tracy could be declared the winner or could have been declared the winner?
Well, depending on when the yellow came out, was he ahead of Elio when the yellow came out, or what? Or so I could when I think about a situation like this, I think of I can't help but think of like NFL football when someone makes a touchdown, the refs say, oh, it was a touchdown, and then the other team have people looking at the tapes, they're like, no, his foot was out of bounds. I think of the same thing there.
yeah.
I mean, really the only way to tell, and I haven't seen all the footage, but I don't know how, you would almost need to see like clear video of Paul Tracy's car clearly ahead of Elio's with green.
So I went and I watched the footage on YouTube from multiple sources.
Yeah.
And
Is this a
honestly,
booth review?
After reviewing it,
You got to do the full like NFL.
I can't make a
After
call.
review.
I know for a fact that the crash happened before he completed the pass, but they did not. The caution lights did not come on. I cannot tell because video footage was not very good in 2002
Right.
compared
We
to what we
didn't
have now.
have the level of cameras. I mean, if you go there right now, there's I think 8 or 9 timing lines around the track, and then there's cameras that cover every inch and can pick up a piece of debris from the they can see it on camera from the tower.
So this is a question for Calvin. He's definitely more versed to answer this than me or Jacob are. So would this or could this happen today with just the timing and scoring system itself?
With the timing and scoring system, there is some room for debate because there's only so many timing lines. It's not a instance. The transponders are all in uniform locations on the cars, but it's there's a timing line say midway down the backstretch. If Elio is ahead midway down the backstretch, then there's a timing line in turn 3. Paul Tracy's ahead in turn 3, no problem. It's clear Paul Tracy's the leader at that time. Question is, when did the yellow fly? And when the yellow fly, what does the rulebook say? Does the positions go back to the start of the lap, the previous timeline, or that specific instance in time?
So let's get into some of the evidence that was kind of brought up during when Team Green protested the win. So I'm going to start with the angle that Paul Tracy is the true winner of the 2002 Indy 500.
Okay.
There was confusion over the rules by race announcers, stating that the leaderboard reverted back to the previous lap, when in reality, they interpreted the rules at the time as whatever the positions were in the last timing loop of the transponders recorded at the time of the yellow.
Yep.
So if Paul Tracy and Helio had not crossed the next timing loop for the transponders before the yellow was flown, Paul Tracy would have been in the lead.
Right.
ABC footage did not show conclusive evidence that the yellow light and caution was initiated before Paul Tracy made the pass for the lead. That's kind of what I mentioned earlier. I went back, I kept reviewing the tapes. I could not, off the footage alone, I could not make a decisive decision on who was in the lead when the yellow actually came out. And then another thing, that this is more speculative at the time, but IRL politics against kart teams could have influenced their decision against Tracy and Team Green if they had to pick one or the other, if the evidence wasn't conclusive enough and they just had to kind of pick a champion. Politics could have gotten in the way because they were still fresh out of the split in 2002. And you know, Team Green and Paul Tracy to this day kind of argue that politics kind of got in the way of their decision a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't Penske a kart team though too?
Not in 2002.
Yeah,
He made the full transfer into the IRL at that time.
Okay.
By that point in time. So Penske was a full-time IRL team at then, but Team Green was a one-off Indianapolis 500 effort, you know, for the IRL. And then again, the yellow lights on the track came on after Tracy passed Castroneves. At least the footage seems to indicate that. But we don't know exactly when the yellow was actually declared. Like if there was a delay when they pressed the button versus when they actually came on. And there was an inconsistency, supposedly, of driver dashboard alerts at the time. Again, this was the early 2000s after all.
Yeah.
Technology wasn't as good as it is nowadays.
Right.
So I think there could be a little bit of, well, yeah, inconsistency, but different interpretations of exactly when the yellow came on, depending on which car you were in, which part of the track you were on. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I mean,
like,
yeah, it's
going through all the evidence.
certainly. I mean, we're talking milliseconds here. This is not.
This was, I think it was like 0.0325 seconds or something at the time of the last transponder scoring line that Paul Tracy was behind Castroneves.
And you talk about like watching the film and saying that you can't really make a decision yourself. If we could make a decision, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation now, and it would have not been any kind of controversy at all.
I mean, the footage
It
alone.
was so close, right?
The footage alone, I couldn't decide.
Right.
It was that close. So technically, you could almost consider it the closest finish of the Indianapolis 500 with an asterisk. Yeah. Because that's when the racing actually finished.
Kind of, yeah.
At least the other ones are clear. Yeah.
So now we're going to kind of jump to the other side, making arguments of why Elio Castroneves is the true winner. And I think the most obvious one is Brian Barnhart made the call that the 3-car was in the lead at the moment of the caution.
And to be clear, Brian Barnhart was the race director for the IRL at the time. So ultimately, the rules fall to him. It's his decision. He is judge and jury.
Right. Basically, back to Aaron's football reference, he was the referee. It ultimately was his call. But was it the right call?
Well, Brian Barnhart has been known for never making mistakes in any other calls he's made.
I know that further adds to the controversy. ABC footage, this is one thing I can confirm after watching the footage. ABC footage showed the crash happening before Tracy passed Castroneves, but not necessarily before the caution was actually initiated, which just adds to that gray area. But Castroneves was definitely in front of Paul Tracy when the cars initially crashed before they caught it and could call the caution. So if you want to go at the time that the cars actually crashed, then it was clearly Castroneves' win.
Yep.
And then, let's see here. I think I had one more thing.
You have stated that the IRL noted that Castroneves was 0.0371 seconds ahead of Tracy at the last scoring antenna before the caution was initiated.
Okay, yeah. So I mentioned that earlier. It wasn't 0.0325. It was 0.0371. That's darn close.
Yeah.
And so, again, there's a gray area. And ultimately, they made the decision they did in July. It was a 2-month appeal. It was about early July, I believe. But it took them that long to kind of really make a decision. And I'd say the last argument for Castroneves is the leaderboard upon a caution period is determined by race officials at the time of the caution, going back to Brian Barnhart's decision. It's how they interpret it, at the time.
Yeah.
They have to make a decision. So it was absolutely up to race officials, and that's why the decision was made to have Elio as the champion. We all know that that's how history goes down, but we're here to discuss if it could have gone the other way. If there was enough evidence that if they decided,
Well, certainly.
if they wanted to, they could declare Paul. If there's there enough evidence within the rules that you could declare Paul Tracy the 2002 Indianapolis 500 winner.
Do you think Paul Tracy is the 2020 500 winner?
So initially,
Yes or no, Jacob?
at first I thought, no way. It was definitely Elio Cat. I was there. We all saw it. But reviewing the rules and how they were interpreting them, looking at the footage, I don't know. I think there's enough there that if it leaned the other way, you could. There is still an argument that Paul Tracy could have won that race.
So here's a side question to that. Could they have had a co-winner?
No, that's not how racing works, Aaron.
Sometimes it does.
No. You don't have finishes of .006.
24 Hours Daytona, you have co-winners.
Because you have a team of drivers.
That's
a very
it's
different
a little
question.
different, Aaron.
Okay.
Spin on your hot take.
Come on, Aaron, focus. Back to the subject at hand. Do you think Paul Tracy won the 500?
I'm going to have to go with Elio on this.
I also have to go with Elio, and I will give you my reasons why.
Go for it.
There's two big things that you mention in your notes. Ultimately, it comes down to the discretion of the race director and the IRL officials. I think in the current IndyCar rulebook, and it's been a while since I've checked, there's something like 137 notes that say at race director's discretion. Ultimately, the race director can decide whatever he wants at his discretion. It's his call at the end of the day.
I have a follow-up for you. If you were the race director, given the evidence, the physical evidence, would you have picked Elio? If you were Brian Barnhart at the time, and there was no politics involved, and you looked at it completely neutrally, could you have decided that Paul Tracy completed the pass before the caution was actually
That's my other
flown?
holding point is what defines a caution being initiated. Is it the impact with the wall, the car, the hazard? Is it race director pushing a button that says yellow flag? Is it the lights turning on? Is it the flagman waving the yellow flag? There's so many sequences of events that happen when you go yellow. Which one do you count as the initiation of the event? Because to me, as soon as the race director makes any point that it's yellow flag, that's initiating it. So that might be before the lights are on. That might be before the flagman waves the yellow. Might be just after the car hits the wall, or even just before. I've seen them call it before the car even stops rolling.
So I'm going to play the devil's advocate, though. If you're from the team or the driver's perspective, you don't know there's a yellow until the yellow flag is flown, until those caution lights come on. So up until those indicators come on,
Or your spotter.
you're still racing.
Yep. So, yeah, that's the thing, is where in the chain of events was yellow called?
So again, the counter is like Brian Barnhart could have been like, "Oh no, we called it before the move, but but you didn't see it come on until after the pass. But since I called it before, I'm going to go back to it."
And that's
before.
why I think they've made big strides since then, that race control radios, there's timestamp, there's no chance. I know, a little off topic, but the Formula E broadcast, they show you in race control, you will hear, I think it's Scott Elkins, the race director, you'll hear him come on the radio with all the drivers and say, yellow, 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 track blockage, turn 3. And I think IndyCar does something similar at this point as well, if not with the spotters. So they've made strides since then to avoid this, but it really comes down to the technology at the time. What records do we have?
And whose decision was it? They made their decision. There's no arguing that at this point.
And ultimately it is. It's down to Brian Barnhart making the call, and he said, Elio, based on this evidence, as a race director, he would listen to the appeal from Team Green and Paul Tracy. And I'm sure he gave it consideration, but
2 months consideration.
yeah,
They gave it. They at least went for 2 months. I don't know how much consideration they actually gave it. Because the other thing too, I think a lot of pressure that if you're Brian Barnhart or even just the IMS, Elio, they declared him the winner on the spot. He got to go to victory lane. They got all the pictures. He got the milk. He got to celebrate. And then to take that away from him, that would look bad from a PR perspective.
Well, it's not like they've never done that before.
It happened to Mario.
Yeah. They did that to Mario in, was it 87?
It was 81.
81.
And it was
81.
actually Bobby Unser that was in celebrating in Victory Lane, wasn't it? Or was it the other way
Well,
around?
all I know is they took the day after photo with Mario.
What I recall is
So Bobby Unser was in Victory Lane on race day, but then they did a mock-up with Mario.
Was Mario in Victory Lane too?
all I know from
I think he went to Victory Lane
The-
because he also thought he won the race.
the stories I hear is that Mario still has the winner's ring because it was given to him at the time.
Yeah, because I don't think. I mean, this isn't about the 1981 500, so we didn't. I didn't do as much homework on that one, but I don't think they declared Bobby the official winner until October of that year.
Yeah, it was a long drawn court battle. And the biggest thing it comes down to is in the IRL rulebook, which is the contract under which the teams compete. The race director has final discretion in all decisions. So realistically, Brian Barnhart could have declared Tony Kanaan the winner of the 2020 500 based on some, as long as he could explain it away. It's up to him to make the call.
And he made the call, but I think what we're debating here is if you were in Brian Barnhart's shoes, who would you declare the winner?
I think I have to stick with Castro Neves
Elio.
on basis of the data. The rules say it goes back to the timing line. At the previous timing line, Castro Neves was ahead. Period. That's by the rules. That's what happened. On the personal side of things, if you're making the call, I think you have to do it just out of the lack of embarrassment for the IMS, saying, hey, we got the winner wrong. All of you that showed up last year. And
So there's a PR angle too.
there is, but I
Yeah.
do not think that supersedes the clarity in the rule book. I think it's 90% the legality and then 10% everything else, including the PR angle.
Okay.
And maybe like that part of that 10% is your politics too. I'm sure that while it was not a consideration, I'm sure, hey, maybe we should take care of the guy. You know, Penske's pretty good to us. It's not like he owns the series yet, but maybe we need to consider taking care of him.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my take on all this, if I had to make the call, I'm still undecided. I think the argument that if the rule said that it's at the time of the last transponder, then that's what you have to do. So I think I still have to go with Castro Neves, but my confidence on that decision was definitely shook after looking into this more for this episode.
Aaron, you say Elio still too?
I'm still Elio.
Because I could make the argument that, yeah, that's what the transponder said, but clearly Tracy was still in front of Castro Neves when the lights came on, so I could override that at my discretion.
Yep.
And say Paul Tracy won that race.
We may never know the truth.
Well, the truth is what the history books say. The truth is Castro Neves won the race. The truth is
I don't know.
Ray
there's-
Haroon won the race. And the truth is, according to the record books,
Well,
that Bobby Unser won the 1981
And it makes you
500.
wonder, back in the teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, how many other situations were like that would have changed if there was technology?
I'm sure there's
A
always
lot.
going to be questions.
Yeah.
So another follow-up question is, with today's technology, do you think Castro Neves or Paul Tracy would have won that race?
I think the rules have been clarified since then. Technology has been increased. So I think it would have been very clear
Yep.
that if we are using the same set of rules where who was ahead when the caution was initiated, we would see very definitively Elio was ahead at the last timing line. I think that's the...
But what if I guarantee they have more timing lines nowadays.
Could be. I mean, timing lines are not simple to install necessarily, but they have...
But the other thing too nowadays is the cars have like the GPS, so they do the track maps with the cars, on TV with the cars and the numbers.
Yep, GPS is only so accurate that you can't...
But so basically you have a lot more data points.
Yeah.
So could you override that last transponder rule if the other data points could suggest that Tracy was actually ahead?
Maybe, but at the end of the day, the legal binding document is the rule book, and what the rule book says is what goes.
Yeah.
So if the rule book says last timing line at race director's discretion, I'd be inclined to think it goes to the last timing line and it still goes to Elio.
I see I'm not sure how much more technology they have, how much more precise they are with where everyone's at the time of a caution. So I really do wonder. if the caution was initiated at the exact same time it was in 2002. With today's technology, both with the transponders, the GPS trackers, the in-car cameras,
Well,
everything, the high def camera quality.
the biggest thing we'd have,
I'm starting to think Tracy could have been declared the winner with today's technology.
I think you go even the
Could've.
other way because you have the in-car, the lights now, the yellow flashing lights that come on the caution, and that's instantaneous with the track lights, which, from what you said, with Elio was not a standardized approach back in 2002. So maybe Paul Tracy didn't have the same lights. Elio didn't know what those lights were. Nowadays, every single car runs the same steering wheel, same data system. So that is standardized. That's going to be
So you
that
think
much
the
clearer.
lights would have come on sooner for everybody?
I think everybody would have seen the lights. There'd have been an onboard camera. I think there's one onboard on every car, if I'm not mistaken.
To some
Yeah.
degree, yeah.
So you could see exactly what happened. So no, I don't think there'd be any confusion. And then, so who you call it comes down to where do we draw the line? Is it the timing line? Is it the line at the instance of the caution? If the rulebook says timing line, it's still going to Elio.
At least that's how you interpret it.
Yep.
Because as the race director, you could, if you had the evidence, you could override that rule.
You could, but you're not gonna change the rule book because if you start making up the rules willy nilly to please whoever you want, you're gonna have a very pissed off Roger Penske in that case. Or
I mean, Team Green was pretty pissed off too.
yeah, but they were there for one race a year. You'd have to see them the next week.
Yeah.
So in summary, all of us are in agreement that Elio won the race.
Yep.
Okay.
And honestly, I'm going to have to agree with you guys this week. I really wanted to disagree, but it just comes down to that timing line rule. If I had to make that decision, I would also revert back to that rule.
Yep.
So I would have to, even though if in my heart, like I saw that Paul Tracy was ahead before the yellow lights came on, I still have to go by the rule book.
Yep. Exactly. That's what it comes down to for me is the rule book. And it's something you can print out, point to, and say, right here, clear as day, Elio won.
And that's ultimately what they did. So, yeah, I think is this the first episode that we're all in agreement to
Yes, it is.
this
I'm
week's hot
shocked,
take?
but yeah. But I know there's a lot of people out there on the internet. I know Reddit currently loves Paul Tracy, so
Oh, I mean, nothing against Paul Tracy. I love following him on Instagram and stuff. He's a very entertaining guy.
well,
But I have to disagree with him in this situation.
if any of you disagree with us, let's leave a comment on your podcast subscription, the YouTube video, Instagram, Twitter, wherever else you can find us. Let us know. I'm curious to see what you guys say.
Alrighty, yeah, I'm curious too, quite honestly. And you guys ready to bury this once and for all?
If we have to.
Yep. Now you know what time it is.
We're burying it.
All right. Aaron, take it away.
Now it's time for the Pit Stop Challenge. The average IndyCar
That's
pit
so annoying.
The average IndyCar pit stop takes an average of 10 seconds. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more. Who cares? But anyway, we're going to ask potentially three questions. And whoever gets best 2 out of 3 will get a point. And you technically have 10 seconds to answer the question. Who's leading right now?
Jacob, I think, has it 2-0.
2-0.
You know,
I want to remind not just you, Calvin, but everyone that I am undefeated right now.
one of these days, the answer to the question will be Danica, and I will get it right. Until then, take your lead.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy it while I can.
All right, you ready for the first question?
Absolutely.
Go
All
for
right.
it.
What year was the Borg-Warner Trophy introduced?
1930 something. 31, 32, 33, 34,
I have no idea, so
35, 36.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. Calvin, it's just a process of elimination. Come on.
I know, but I really don't want to take that away from you. You seem to be having so much fun.
This isn't a question, but
You're not even trying, Calvin.
this isn't one of the questions, but who won in 36?
Jacob, that's all you.
Louis Meyer.
Yep.
Oh,
So Louis Meyer was the first to do many things.
Yep.
First on the trophy, first on drink milk.
well, I think they put all the previous winners' heads on the trophy too.
I know, but he was the first one that was like,
Like added next after
Right.
it was made.
Okay, and ready for number 2.
Absolutely.
Who won the pole in the Indy 500 in...
Are you making this up as you go?
No, I'm just...
It looks like you're
I'm making
kinda
sure
trying
you're
to
ready.
think
No,
of-
I got it written down. I'm making sure you're ready.
Okay.
2011.
Danica Patrick.
Alex Tagliani.
Boom.
Yeah. I think that concludes the pit stop challenge.
concludes
That was
the pit stop
That was really on Calvin. You got to step up your game, man.
You know, like I said, one of these days Danica will be the right answer, and I will get it right.
I was going to really throw a curveball at you, but we're not going to get to number 3, so I'll keep that for
Throw
next
it in there just for fun.
What year did the first Jacques Villeneuve attempt to make the Indy 500?
Well, it wasn't 94 if there was a first one.
It was like 74, I think. It wasn't even going to be my question, but I just thought of it.
It was the uncle to
Yep.
race winner Jacques Villeneuve.
The brother to Jill's.
Correct.
Why would they name your son after your brother? Like, I don't know. Like, that's kind of a fun fact. I had no idea there's
There you go.
a
And
Jacques Villeneuve number one.
and that Jacques Villeneuve number 1 actually was big into snowmobile racing, I believe.
Well, they are
Fun.
Canadian, so
Yep.
I mean, it's a little cold up there.
Just a little bit, especially right now.
So for the pit stop challenge this week, Jacob Smith brings his lead to 3-0.
Calvin, you got to step it up, man.
There is still hope for me.
Until there's a Danica Patrick as an answer, Calvin may have some problems.
Aaron, you make the questions. You know my answer. I don't see why this is difficult.
I'll make a consideration. But before Jacob takes us home, I will make an announcement that Race 92 has some new shirts on the website.
Hell yeah, we do.
We have 3 David Land exclusive shirts for a certain sports car race happening this week, next week, or the week after that, whenever it is. It's coming up.
Depends how long it takes to edit this podcast and get it uploaded.
And
January
we have
30th. I think.
And we have one exclusive Race 92 shirt in reference to sports car racing, which I have on.
Which is great for the audio listeners who can't see this.
Yep.
Just go to race92.com and you'll see it all there.
And like I offered you guys last week, since I'm not directly in the ownership of Race 92, I can give you guys a promo code. So go to the website, use the code podcast10, and they'll take 10% of their profits and give it to you.
And while you're at it, make sure you hit subscribe on the video below.
Yep, subscribe to the podcast. And
Don't forget
on
to
YouTube.
smash that notification button so you know when we release episodes every week.
Yep, I think that's about it.
Well, then, that wraps up this week for the Pit Stop Power Hour, presented by Race 92. If you liked the show, please rate and subscribe. And if you didn't, well, let's just pretend this never happened.
Like a bad Tinder date.
Exactly, Aaron. Sound good? For the rest of you, we'll see you next week.